Wednesday in Le Mans, and it's time for qualifying for the 2022 running of the world's greatest endurance motor race, the Le Mans 24 Hours. After a dry-free practice session, finally crowds back at the circuit and packing the grandstands. For most of the cars in this 60-plus field, this will decide their grid positions. But the fastest half dozen in each class go through to Hyperpole, which decides their spots in the top 6. That will be on Thursday evening. The whole field heads out for a 1-hour session. More than 60 cars, but over 13.5 kilometers of track. Nevertheless, everybody will end up complaining about traffic on what could have been a better lap. Toyota taking the fight to rivals Glickenhaus and Alpine in the top-tier category hypercar, and the fastest lap coming from the number 7 Toyota before the session was interrupted. A high-speed crash for Hollywood actor Michael Fassbender in his debut at Le Mans on the legendary Mulsanne Straight. Clattered the barriers hard after losing the car under braking. That was the end of his qualifying session, and it brought out the red flags. The car needed to be recovered from the first chicane. Fortunately for Michael, he was A-OK. Almost exactly 30 minutes had run when the session was stopped into the second half, and the Glickenhaus tried to fight back, but was unable to find the pace to match the Toyotas. In the LMP2 class, WRT, last year's winner, set the fastest lap time. They and 5 others go through. Toyota couldn't be beaten in hypercar. All the hypercars will be in the Hyperpole category. 92, the top car in the GTE Pro class, where both Porsches, both Corvettes and both Ferraris went through. And in the GTE AM category, it was Aston Martin on top of the pile. Rain interrupted the session right at the end, precluding any further laps. The 24 Hours of Le Mans began in beautiful sunny conditions, with Toyota dominating the run into the first corner in the blue-ribboned hypercar class, but they were 5 wide behind, and the 22 United Autosports car, a winner 2 seasons ago, out within 200 meters of the start and in the gravel traps. The team could not believe it. By the time driver Will Owen was returned to the track, they had lost 2 laps to the leaders in a massively competitive field. WRT was served with a penalty, a stop-go in the pits, for having triggered that accident. Perhaps a slightly harsh judgment, but in the end, the 22 came off a lot worse from the contact. At the front of the field, Toyota led, but there were battles all the way down, both in the mammoth GTE AM field and the equally huge LMP2 category, including this one. TDS Racing by Vaillant moving up into 13th place. The car rebuilt after a qualifying crash, and a new driver being recruited, Nick de Vries, joining the lineup with no previous laps under his belt. The WeatherTech Racing Porsche moving up into 2nd place in the GTE AM field. Factory driver Julian Andlauer, supplied by Porsche, to the lineup on the team. And then he too made a move for the lead. A late dive down the inside of Alessio Picariello into one of the slower corners on the circuit from the fastest speeds on the track. Job well done, taking the lead. Problems for the 709 Glickenhaus, an unforced pit stop causing them to lose the lead lap. Still in the top 5, but behind by a lap. And in LMP2, all of the big names continued to battle. New Boys Prema fighting with reliable front runners Jota, and getting the lead after a slow zone, better on the restart into the green flag zones. Contact between gentlemen drivers. Pierre Arret coming off worst in the green Ferrari after fellow AM driver Francois Perrodo, and he misjudged their closeness into the super fast Porsche curves. The race continues, 22 hours to go. Late afternoon troubles for the Alpine team, leading the World Endurance Championship. Points coming into the third round here at Le Mans with a lot of points still on offer. But problems with a clutch have dropped them out of the lead group in Hypercar. Plenty of action in LMP2, and Penske, Dane Cameron and Felipe Nasr doing some solid multiple stint driving, the Brazilian bringing them up into a podium position. Chasing down WRT's Rolf van Eycken, the team responding to another big pass by the Brazilian to move them up into second place in LMP2. But the dominant force so far has been the 38 Jota car. Antonio Felix da Costa handing over to gentleman driver Roberto Gonzalez as they head into the middle of the evening sessions. He will go and do a double stint. More trouble though, coil igniter packs on the engine, reducing the pace of the Alpine, and they are forced back into the garage. More action in LMP2, Charles Milesi in the #1 Richard Mille Racing team, battling with Ollie Jarvis at United Autosport, squeezing his way through at the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight. Jarvis not lying down on that one and coming right back at him. All the way down the 27 car strong field, there are identical battles being fought from first to last for every position. Jarvis squeezing back in front once more. And the United driver on the hunt for more glory, going by Pietro Fittipaldi to pick up another spot down at the superfast Indianapolis corner. In GTE Pro we'd had a Corvette 1-2 early on. The 64 car was delayed, but Alexander Sims going back past the Porsche of Lawrence Vanthoor for second. More contact in traffic, the Iron Dames pink Porsche getting clattered by an LMP2 car. They are having no luck whatsoever. And not much seems to be going the way of Alpine either, but they must finish to hold their championship lead. The sun sets at Le Mans.
As day become night here at the Circuit de la Sarthe, the challenge intensifies for the drivers and for the team as a whole. Keeping yourself alert, keeping yourself awake with pit stop cycling through every half an hour is a real challenge. And the challenge is also intense on track. Richard Bradley in the #30 machine Duqueine having an inconspicuous spin, but it took him a while to recover from that. Half an hour is a stint length for an LMP2 car, meaning lots of work for the crews to service the cars. And sometimes a little bit of finger trouble leads to big mistakes on track. Good battle for 5th position between the Penske #5 and at that point René Rast in the #31, recovering after a penalty at the start of the race. And then Jean-Baptiste Lehay with this big lose through the Porsche curves, scattered debris all over the circuit. And the ultimate would require some TLC to get himself back onto track. Jean-Baptiste, the younger brother of Mathieu Lehay in that team. Luckily, the damage not too bad. The reliability as a whole has been very good across the night stints. We haven't lost too many cars, mainly little mistakes like this. Nicolas Jamin with a bit of a lock-up and nosing through the gravel at Mulsanne, just touching the barriers lightly. Time, the biggest loser. We then got all 3 GT Pro cars on the same piece of tarmac, and for about half an hour, a fantastic battle, with eventually the better tired Corvette getting past the Ferrari for the lead. At that point, Porsche watching on.
Breakfast at Le Mans and the drama continuing for the Alpine team that have had such a tough 24-hour race already. Mathieu Vassivière getting caught out in traffic into the super fast Porsche curves and having to take avoiding action straight through the gravel and into the barriers, but not a major impact. The replay shows him catching a Porsche at speed, but an LMP2 car also right there, maybe just adding a fraction of distraction. And the hypercar driver across the gravel and into the barriers was able to get the car turned around and back into the pit lane, but could not believe his error. More trouble this time for Corvette. They'd only just announced retirement of 63 when suddenly contact with Francois Perraudot's AF Corse LMP2 car put the 64 car hard into the barriers between the chicanes on the Mulsanne straight. The team knew it was a major problem. They were 1-2 going into the night. This was the end of their Le Mans dream for 2022. The car was out on the spot. Francois Perraudot, as ever a gentleman, was absolutely distraught with his mistake, ruining somebody else's race. In all his time in top-level sports car racing, he said, "I have never made such an awful error." And he went straight to Laura Wontrop-Klauser, the boss of GM Racing, to apologise to her, to the drivers and to the team for ruining their race. As ever at Le Mans, there was more drama in store, and this time for last year's race winners, WRT. A dramatic end to the race. Robin Freins, due to come into the pits to hand over to his teammate, getting caught out in Indianapolis, carrying in a fraction too much speed, spat across the road into the barriers. The impact light in the cockpit came in, meaning that the driver would have to be taken immediately to the medical centre, and without a driver the car could continue no further. It was relatively undamaged, but it did bring out the first safety car of the race. With just 4 hours remaining, the battles in all 4 classes remain tightly poised.